And get this, Clifton Suspension Bridge have announced that they are now the latest place to be stepping away from Elon Musk's Twitter. Really? I mean, really? What is going on? Do you think that these brands, people and places should be doing this? And what do you think is actually driving it all? Also, figures out today show Britain had an immigration surge bigger than other rich nations. Again, I'll ask you, what do you think is driving that? And look who's keeping me company till 7 o'clock tonight. Kelvin McKenzie, the former editor at The Sun, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour minister. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live for the 6 o'clock news headlines.
Thank you, Michelle. The time is just after 6 o'clock and these are your latest headlines. We're going to start this hour with some breaking news. Later this evening, the Chancellor is expected to pledge to rip up financial red tape in her first speech at Mansion House. Rachel Reeves will argue that regulatory changes following the 2008 economic crash have gone too far, and that has had the effect of holding back growth. As a result, it's anticipated she will announce a package of reforms aimed at driving competition across financial services. She's also expected to announce plans for pension megafunds, which could result in around $80 billion to invest in businesses and infrastructure. Earlier on, Pensions Minister Emma Reynolds outlined these proposed plans.
Pensions Minister, let me be absolutely clear that it is these two objectives that I'm holding in my mind all the time, which is boosting investment in our own economy, but at the same time boosting pension savers' retirement incomes. This is a win-win situation.
Law enforcement agencies in the UK, Belgium and the Netherlands have arrested a major supplier of small boats and engines to criminal people smugglers. The suspect, a 44-year-old Turkish national, was arrested after arriving at Amsterdam airport. Dutch authorities plan to extradite the man to Belgium to face charges as part of an organised criminal operation. The National Crime Agency says that the suspect has been a top target of investigations for years. Spain is braced for torrential rain and high winds as a powerful storm is set to hit the country. That's just weeks after flash flooding killed more than 200 people in the region of Valencia. A Spanish weather forecaster raised Valencia's warning level to the maximum one last night, and other weather warnings were issued across the country. Emergency services in Malaga have already moved 3,000 people from their homes at high risk of flooding. And a 62-gun salute has taken place at the Tower of London this lunchtime. That was to honour King Charles' 76th birthday. Today is the monarch's actual birthday, following the official celebration marked by trooping the colour in June. Early this morning, the royal family posted a new image of the King on X, and the Prince and Princess of Wales wished the King a happy birthday with this image on Instagram. And despite it being his birthday, the King is still carrying out his official duties today. He's opened 2 coronation food hubs designed to bridge the gap between food need and food waste in the UK. For now, those are your latest GBNews headlines. I'm Sophie Reaper. More from me in the next hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight. So I've got a lot to discuss with you. And keeping me company, Kelvin McKenzie, the former editor at The Sun, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour minister. Good evening to both of you. We've got so much to discuss tonight about migration figures. I want to talk to you about Twitter and X, lots of things, council tax. Before I do, let me ask you a quick question. Settle a dispute for me that's going on in my home and maybe many homes across the land as well. Is it too early to put Christmas decorations up, Kelvin, at home?
Well, I saw in the green room at GB News they've got 2 Christmas trees up already. Where are we now? I don't know what even the date is. But I think there is so much gloom both in the weather and the politics right now.
So it's a yes?
The answer is we can have it as early as you like. And honestly, the mince pies have started in my household already.
Have they? Mm-hmm. Oh, I might come and live with you. Do you think it's too early for people to put their Christmas decorations up?
I do, but my decision is dictated by my wife, who makes such decisions in the house.
Have you got yours up yet?
No.
You see, everyone at home, I'm desperate. I'm itching. I'm desperate to get my Christmas tree up, but I'm not allowed at the moment because it's...
Who doesn't allow you, Michelle?
The boss.
Really?
Boss, yeah, well, the person that thinks is the boss anyway.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not allowed.
You encourage him to think that, do you?
Yeah, I'm not allowed mine up, and I'm not happy about it. And speaking of Christmas, actually, here on GB News, we're on the lookout for a choir. We would like to find a choir. We want to come and film with you for a good half a day, I reckon. We want to watch you blasting out some of the Christmas traditional festivities so that we can share them with our audiences over Christmas. So if you are indeed a choir member, or a choir leader, and it sounds like the kind of thing you'd be up for, get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us all the usual ways, not just if you're a choir person, but all about the issues today. You can email all the usual ways. Email me at gbviews@gbnews.com. You can go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay, or, of course, you can tweet or X me. Tell me about your Christmas decorations as well. And if you're up for the choir thing, just make sure you put choir in your subject line of the email so I can find you very easily. But look, tonight, let's kick off, shall we, with council tax. Do you remember yesterday? I hope you remember yesterday. Kemi Badenoch, she was asking a few questions. Take a listen.
So he has made life more expensive with his unilateral commitments. But speaking of making life more expensive, will the Prime Minister confirm that he will keep the cap on council tax?
Mr. Speaker, she talks of the trip to COP. On the question of council, she knows what the arrangements are.
Well, the short answer is yes. It looks likely that council tax will rise up to 5% next year, so your bills could go up again. Over £100 from April next year. Don't forget as well that some councils, they have the ability, don't they, to go to referendum as well to raise it even higher than that. What do you think to this, Kelvin? Is it fair or not?
Well, it's 3 times the current inflation figure, the choice is coming up. There's county councils coming up in May, so you can sling out your county council. And unfortunately, you can't sling out your local council until the following year. I'm not sure that the council are doing. Do you realise that if you didn't have to pay for the pensions, these gold-plated super, fantastic pensions which you can't get in private industry for your local government employees, your bill will go down by 20%. So 20p in the pound of that £109 for the D band, and remember it goes up to 250 quid at the top end. And this is the issue today. It's suddenly begun to come out. Come January, they're going to go for a revaluation. So no matter what your council tax now is, it's going to go up. They were very careful about it. This is absolutely going to be, they're going to, honestly, roger the living daylights out of ordinary people.
Blimey.
Working people are in big trouble under this government.
Many people, Bill Rammell, are saying that this is an example of a Labour Party U-turn again, because I think it was Angela Rayner said quite recently, actually, that there was no plans to increase council tax.
I think she was referring to what Kelvin's talking about, the rebanding. I think you're wrong, Kelvin. I think this Labour government will look at the lessons of history.
OK, well, let's keep this piece of video. OK. Let's keep this piece of video.
But we'll look at the lessons of history in any government that's gone for re-evaluation of the council tax that has been slaughtered. I don't think we'll do it. The answer to Kemi Badenoch's question...
When you say you don't think you'll do it, before we move back to Badenoch, what's your confidence level on that? Are you 100%? Would you bet your house on this? Like,
I'm about 75% confident.
OK.
But let's come back to Kemi Badenoch. Her question was, are you going to keep the cap in place? And the government's confirmed today, yes, we are. This is exactly the same regime that the Tories had when they were in power. But the reality is local government has been cut more than any area of public spending over 14 years under the Tories. We can all see the evidence for that in potholes in the roads, in social care that's collapsing, in libraries and play schemes that have closed, in youth services being decimated. That has to be paid for. And councils don't have to do this. But if they believe the tax should go up by up to 5.1%, they can make a case for to the electorate that that's what they want to do, and then they'll be judged at the ballot box.
They absolutely will be, and you're going to see people really energised, I think, to do it. So any party that decided that was in local power, they are going to be out of power if they continue down this path. But I look at my local council, Elbridge, right? I'm often saying this. You could fire a cannon at the council HQ and not kill one single employee of the council. There is nobody in these council offices anymore. So why don't we just sell off these buildings? If people are allowed to work at home in the 100% way, why don't we just sell off the land? For instance, at Elmbridge, that would be worth quite a lot of money, actually, to be honest, in the Esher area. But honestly, throughout the country, I think people have completely lost link with either their local politicians, who don't seem to have any say. I mean, they say the 5%. They have basically said to the whole country, everybody is going to have to pay on the D band £109 more. And if you're above that, it's well over 200 quid. This is not no money. These are working people. We are working people. I am sick and tired of funding local government and not knowing what it's going to be. And where I disagree with you, I'm 100% certain with that rather vague output that came tonight, right, that they are going to go for this version of extra banding, which actually is, you know, to my mind, will see them out of power for 100 years, let alone,
we'll
5
see,
years.
Kelvin. I actually agree with you about a return to work. I think since COVID, too many people are not in the workplace. That's not just local government, it's across the board.
Yeah, it's 4 in 10.
It's in the private sector as well as the public sector.
But it's 100% in local government.
Well, it's not 100%, and it needs to be tackled. But the reality is, you know, the Local Government Association, cross-party, has estimated that 1 in 4 councils faces bankruptcy in the next 2 years unless there's additional financial support. I'm not lying when I say local government's been hit harder over 14 years than any other area of public services.
But can I just tell you, round my way in Woking, the reason that went bust is because they went completely mad and they basically spent £1 billion putting together a shopping centre. I've been to the shopping centre quite nicely. They didn't have £1 billion. Up goes interest rates. Suddenly, poor Woking residents who know nothing about finance at all are now having to pay an extra premium on top of their council tax to pay back this ridiculous idea. We have too many idiots running local government.
Well, you know,
why is that, Bill?
That's one example. You can't...
No, I can name another one locally to me that bought property. They've gone bust.
You can't get to 25% of councils facing bankruptcy without there being a major fundamental financial problem that they are all facing. And, you know, the reality is, go into any local community, the roads are an absolute carnage with potholes. Social care, you know, is almost collapsing. You know, libraries have been closed, youth centres have been closed.
Funnily enough, around my way, there are more places selling books at 4pence and 10pence and 2 quid than are ever available in a library. I'm puzzled about this library feeling. There are no books that anybody wants to read in libraries. That's why people don't go there anymore. They can go and buy the world's greatest books. You can buy any Boris now for about £2 from the Sambir Hospice, you know. So I agree that there are issues around social care, but I have not seen this government, nor have I seen any government in my lifetime that really wanted to deal with it because of the cost base.
I agree with you. So I think this government's made a good start on the National Health Service across the board, but the bit that hasn't happened... Yeah, I do.
In what sense?
Both reform, you know, targets, being prepared to sack senior officials, and a big financial investment.
Right, Wes Streeting, right, put all the blame on these managers. I don't know whether they're any good or not. What I do know is hospitals are run by doctors. Doctors, they say no, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're not doing the other. But the managers are an easy hit for a Labour government, aren't they? All managers who run hospitals are idiots, and everybody below them are geniuses or saints. That is not the case, and that's when I felt that Streeting lost the argument. If he said, I am going to deal with people who have power in hospitals and I'm going to bring them to book, I would have said, great idea. Just some CFO of a hospital, right? He can't tell a consultant what to do. They wouldn't take any bloody notice.
I agree with you to this extent. I think medical professionals have got enormous power in the system. They're often defending vested interest, and that needs to be challenged. But we were talking about social care. Yeah. We need a long-term solution. This government hasn't launched it yet. It's talking about early next year. It needs to come. And I tell you this, my solution, and it won't be universally popular, is is you do, and the government wouldn't call it this, you need something akin to a death tax. Because half of us are going to end up in long-term social care and we're going to lose our homes. I would far rather pay 10% of my estate when I die in order to get a decent social care system.
Well, you're lucky to have an estate. As a Labour minister, a wealthy estate, you've done rather well in life, Bill.
So have a lot of people.
Right.
But, would you not trade it off, Kelvin? You've got the choice.
I try to avoid having anything to do with anything that's government or local council funded, right? I think a lot of people have got to take issue for themselves and look after themselves and their families.
And I'll play it back. You can afford that. Lots of people can't.
Right, well, lots of people can, but choose not to and leave me with the bill.
I pity the person that has to look after you in your old age and a care. Can you imagine whoever gets that short
I'm lucky,
straw?
I've got Leslie.
Look, there you go, death tax 10% of your estate. You might be just saying exactly what Kelvin's saying. An estate, chance would be a fine thing, wouldn't it? Of course, I've got to say, it's not just the council that you mentioned that's been poorly managed. Yeah. Many people will be shouting out things like Croydon, Birmingham. There's loads of places that seem to make terrible decisions.
And whoever you are...
Yeah, but whoever you are that live there, you get tasked with the responsibility of bailing out these absolutely absurd, ludicrous, poor decisions. Often people seem to think that there's some kind of mini Alan Sugar without having a fraction of the common sense that one would require to be him. Anyway, look, many people are saying that now, Mark asking, how can council tax keep going up when services keep going down? How do people get away with all of this? Kevin, he brings up Birmingham as well. I think that's a very fair point. There's not a lot of appreciation for the thought that council tax might have to rise. You can tell me your thoughts on that so-called death tax proposal then in the break as well. After the break, let's talk about Twitter again. Have you seen that people continue to announce their departure? What do you think is going on there? Do you think it matters or not? Also, immigration figures, we'll look at those too. See you in a sec.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people might have thought that they'd be seeing at this point, because you were both on the show, but you didn't fall in love in the pods, did you?
No, we didn't. I rejected him.
You guys look great together.
Yeah.
Very happy as well. It seemed like you guys were really strong, and it almost seemed like Freddie, after he admitted to you that he'd cheated in the past...
I actually respected the fact that he told me up front. I didn't even want to have that conversation, obviously. That was a conversation that we got told to talk about. And I respected his decision, but I think he felt that I was holding this grudge towards him that she really doesn't like, and which was not, and he knew this, because off camera we had many conversations where I was like, thank you for owning up, like, we can just move on from this. But if anything, I think he just felt guilty the whole entire time, and he put that on me, which is fine, but yeah, there's obviously a lot that people don't see.
So for viewers who don't know, Love is Blind is where you go and seek love and romance, but you don't see who you're speaking to, right?
No.
So, Jake, why did you go on the show?
My parents actually met in a very similar way. So my stepdad was texting my mum. He'd basically stolen the number off of a friend because the friend had met my mum in Blackpool, and they were texting for like 6 months. They'd never met. So that premise of how they got together and the marriage that they had was stunning. And to build a relationship not based on looks before you met, I just found that just incredible.
So do you believe in that concept? Is it lust or love at first sight?
It's weird.
It's a bit of both.
I think, it's definitely a bit of both. And I always say, as you get older, your looks will change, but your personality will stay the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7. Kelvin McKenzie and Bill Rammell remain. Now, I said it last night, didn't I? Twitter, or X as it's now known, it's not an airport. You don't need to announce your departure. But this seems to have become a thing now. People have jumped on this bandwagon. We saw yesterday, didn't we, The Guardian saying that their farewells and coming off the platform today. Wait for it, brace yourselves, everyone. This might hurt you. Maybe I should have just done a trigger warning in advance, but I forgot. Ready? The latest one, the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Yes, that's right. They have followed The Guardian and said that they too will leave Twitter. I mean, I don't know how you're going to cope, quite frankly, if you're a Twitter and X user without these vital updates from the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Anyway, they say it's a rise of inappropriate content and decrease in meaningful engagement. They won't be doing it anymore. They feel that the changes in the platform have caused them to reconsider their use. What do you think's going on here, Kelvin McKenzie?
Well, it's hardly a massive rush, is it? I mean, it's The Guardian, and there will be others. I mean, honestly, Clifton Suspension Bridge, there's probably the most publicity it had ever had, apart from the fact that, of course, nobody can ever get over the thing. So what's happening is a political pushback. The left have controlled Twitter for as long as I can remember. And now I think it's more balanced, personally. Certainly the amount of vile that I get has gone down since Elon Musk took it over. And that's just from divorce lawyers. You know, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. And even if it turned into tens of millions, it wouldn't matter. It's a massive platform. And if they've gone somewhere else, they've gone to Truth Social, for instance, gone to old...
I don't think they've gone
to Donald.
Yeah.
But if the left started one, the trouble is nobody wants to read what the left have got to say. You know, apart from the fact... I mean, after all, they've got an example here of a government that said we wouldn't do X, we wouldn't do Y, and what's happened? They've done both of them. So there's nothing to believe on the left, so they might as well stay where they are. It's just another platform. I would like to see more platforms, to be honest.
See, I think this is important, and I'll tell you for why, Bill, because I get a sense that there is a proactive desire to try and either silence or take business away from platforms that allow and permit conservative viewpoints. And I feel like this is what's going to happen next to Twitter, X as it's now known, that people seem to think that if you permit conservative, right-leaning viewpoints that many on the left would disagree passionately with, that should mean that you should therefore be starved of advertising revenue and so on and so forth. What do you think?
I think that's wrong. I'm someone who passionately believes in free speech and open debate. My day job is leading an educational charity that teaches contested history from both sides. So I'm passionately in favour of free speech and open debate.
And that's fascinating, but that doesn't make my point wrong.
No. But I think there are concerns about X or Twitter since Musk has taken over. You know, there were a whole group of people who had been excluded that he has brought back. I think that gives people some concerns. And they have a right to take decisions not to use that platform. I happen to believe the vast majority will not take that decision because it's a very powerful platform and people engage in it to make their arguments. But I think there's a broader problem, and it's actually the lack of regulation of social media. GB News, other broadcasters, newspapers, we can't just come on and spout any untrue nonsense that we like. There is regulation.
You give it a good go there, don't you, Kelvin?
I've made a career out of it. I made a career out of it.
We all three of us know that there is regulation in place. None of that exists with Twitter or other social media platforms, and I think that's a problem.
Well, actually, that leads us now on to Alison Pearson, doesn't it?
Well, hang on then, and that leads us on to Alison Pearson, so let's hear from her then.
She's gone quiet.
I'm not ashamed that people come to my house with a really crazy overreaction to something that should just be let go. It's trying to shape the morality of the population, right? It's thought control.
Thought control. So whilst you're saying that there's not this official regulation and all the rest of it surrounding perhaps X, the police are spending an awful lot of time looking at tweets and all the rest of it.
Well, I found that a very strange occurrence. Remembrance Sunday, it's 20 to 10 in the morning, and 2 police officers turn up, and they say we're here because, by the way, hate crime is a massively important thing. So even although it's supposed to be, oh, it's nothing really, nothing to worry about. Actually, if you get found on that, it goes on your criminal records check.
Yeah, you're talking about non-crime hate.
Non-crime hate. It says it's non-crime hate. When your criminal records check takes place, right, that's on there. That will disbar you from things like at a nursery or something, or for instance, any form of local government, whatever, or in private industry, somebody will have to take a view, right? So it's not nothing. So it's important. So the idea that they turn up like that, and then when she said, well, what's this about? They say, well, it's about a tweet. He said, well, can you tell me what the tweet was? She said, no, we can't. He said, well, can you tell me who the accuser was? No, not only can't we tell you who the accuser, it's not an accuser, it's a victim. Right? These are serious things on a Sunday morning, right? When she's just about to get dressed to go out to the remembrance of the local sun and stuff or whatever. And so, this is what worries me about the world. Now, look, I don't think we should be able to just put down any old rubbish on it. And so I agree with you there, Bill. The question is, with the whole world on Twitter, right? How many police officers are there in the world? I mean, you've got the Met now saying that we're going to have drastic comebacks. So what will happen?
I mean, I think there's some real concerns about this case. I mean, I disagree with most of what Alison Pearson writes, but I think she's got a right to write it. And I don't believe she would have said anything that was genuinely provoking violence. And that's where you should draw the line. You know, I was involved in Prevent as a government minister for 8 years. And I learnt that the only dividing line that you can establish between what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in terms of extremism is violence and the advocacy of violence. If you're not doing either of those, you should be free to speak your mind. And I agree with you. You know, I mean, one, this took a year to reach the police. 2, she wasn't told what she was being accused of. That is Orwellian.
But how likely are people, I mean, I don't know what the evidence is and statistics that surround this. If someone sees a tweet that says, I don't know, oh, I'd love to punch Michelle Dewberry in the face.
That's serious.
I mean, that's a thought that had run through the mind of many. But how likely then are people to see a tweet like that and go, oh, yeah, I saw that tweet and therefore I'm going to go punch Michelle Dewberry in the face? Because people will often say that tweet has incited violence or that person's done that and it's made all these people go on the street. And I just think, really, if someone writes something on Twitter, what are the statistics that demonstrate that actually that really did lead?
That is true, but however, can I just say that I think if you did write that, you'd be in a lot of trouble. Yeah. Or you could be if you were prepared to report them.
And we also live in a country where 2 members of Parliament have been murdered in the last 10 years. And, you know, people do things because of what they can do on social media in a way that they didn't do in the past.
Yeah, but
however, in terms of... Hold on, Michelle. In terms of this specific case, you need proportionality, and I don't think the police are delivering that. And I welcome the fact the government has announced this afternoon it's going to review...
OK, I don't warm to Essex Police. I don't warm to Essex Police now going to the press regulator moaning and bleating about the coverage that this case has got. Thanks to Alison, right, we've seen a spotlight on what happens to you. Imagine if you were Joe Blow, the plumber, and the cops had come round. Nobody would do anything for you then. No, well done, Alison, on that.
And we need to review it, and there needs to be proportionality. And in my view, if we need to change the law, we should, because the only reason you should be tackled by the police is if you're committing violence or you're advocating violence. We need to up the threshold.
I want to say two things. You mentioned about MPs being killed, which is obviously horrendous. But one of those people was David Amis, and of course he was murdered by an Islamist extremist. And instead of focusing on that issue and how do we address that threat, the whole conversation then, because no one had any chops and the courage to focus on the real issue, everyone then started talking about, oh, well, why don't we all be nicer to each other on social media? That whole thing was a farce, focusing on that social media stuff. It was done only because people didn't have the courage to focus on the real issue and why that MP was very sadly killed.
Well, and on the other side of the fence, you can talk about that, you know, Joe Cox was murdered by a white suprematist. It was. Suprematist, can't even say it. So you need to tackle the causes, but we need...
Yes, but no one... My point is, you brought up, as we're talking about social media, you brought up the two matters of the MPs, and what I'm saying is, social media was used as a deflection. When it came to David Amis specifically, I remember that's where the conversation went, that everyone needs to be nicer on social media. And that cherry was picked, if you like, because it was the low-hanging one, it was the easy one, and it was the coward's way out. So I'm always a little bit cautious of blaming things on social media when actually what it means is that there's something else going on.
But that's not where I'm coming from on this. I'm actually saying that, you know, on the face of it, and, you know, we need to get at all the facts, but on the face of it, what happened to Alison Pearson was totally wrong.
It was,
and the police have gone over the top in their handling of these incidents. The other thing that's worth saying, we've talked about, you know, is this a non-crime hate incident? They're actually using powers of the 1986 Public Order Act. And it seems like they've changed their tune, because that's not when they interviewed her on Sunday.
Yes, that's right. They see her on Sunday and say that, but now they're saying that this is going to be a straightforward crime, don't they?
And the key line, because I was watching Alison's thing, she was on. If you missed it, by the way, you can watch it on Catch Up. She was on with Nigel Farage last night. You can see it on the app or online. When she was saying, well, who's the accuser? And the police were like, it's not an accuser, it's a victim.
It is a victim.
So if you've concluded already that there is a victim, then you're prejudging the outcome of any investigation as to whether or not something was actually going wrong. And my final point, before I get off my soapbox, Bill, I do find it fascinating that everyone that seems to have an issue with Twitter X now didn't seem to have the same problem with Twitter X before, when they were suppressing conservative viewpoints. They were shadow banning people, they were banning people, they were suppressing information, like allegations people will suggest about Hunter Biden's laptop and so on and so forth. No one cared then.
And also the violence...
You accuse me of many things. I am not in favour, generally, of banning people and banning political views, because the only way you make progress is by debating it, as we do on this channel. So I'm not in favour, generally, of bans. But I think the Alison Pearson case is a bit different to the overall Twitter situation. That is the police. I do
know that under the previous ownership of Twitter, the violence, the written violence towards me was off the scale. And on that basis...
What are we on about when?
Well, I would say prior to Musk buying it, I would say on a fairly regular basis, I would get, I'm going to kill you. I am going to, we're going to, if I ever see you, I'm going to whack you in the face, or a whole series of threats.
Did you report those?
No, I did none of that.
Why?
But that's...
well, to be honest with you, I took it. So one time there were some rather serious threats, and my then wife then got the cops round, right? And what they said to me was, look, it's written down. It won't happen. We will defend your house for a little while. And I've always taken the view, which was your view really, Bill, was that this is somebody a rather nasty, vile person just getting it off their chest. Now, I agree with you that if we'd gone down the Alison Pearson route, I could probably have had, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500 people who had threatened to kill me.
But there's also the concern, and you and I, Kelvin, were talking about it earlier, is the way social media algorithms just direct the news that agrees with your opinion to you. And in the longer run, for society, I think that's a real concern, because we're just going like that in terms of division.
I think we are, and we've just seen it happen in America, and we're going to have it here. So Labour are going to be out in 5 years, which is good news.
But also, I mean, everyone, you do have brain cells, you can actually apply them. So you do realise that there is a broad spectrum of different outlets. So, you know, you do have to take a bit of personal responsibility sometimes to seek out different information and different perspectives, surely. Anyway, look, that is all I've got time for on that conversation. Coming up after the break, I want to talk to you about migration figures, because new stats show that Britain has had the highest migration figures among wealthy nations. What do you think is driving that?
Evening, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News, where we keep clear skies tonight. Expect it to turn a little frosty with some fog patches. There will be some rain arriving tomorrow across the northwest, but a fine day across much of the south thanks to this area of high pressure. Changes are on the way as we go into the weekend. But for Friday, that high pressure keeping things largely dry. As I said, through the night where we've got some clear skies across the south, and we could see a touch of frost in rural spots, and we could also see some fog patches forming parts of northeast Scotland, also turning a little chilly. Elsewhere, generally a bit too much cloud, providing some drizzle in parts of western Scotland and the odd spot of drizzle across the south of England this evening, but that generally clearing away. Where we keep the cloud, temperatures could hold up in double figures, but where we've got the clear skies, we could certainly in rural spots across the south see some pockets of frost, and it's likely to be some fog patches around as well, which will linger through the morning rush hour. So just something to be aware of. Further north, not so foggy, but quite grey for Northern Ireland, much of southern Scotland, a bit of rain and drizzle here and there, some of that in western Scotland too. But to the east, generally here, a fine bright start. Any fog patches across eastern Scotland should clear pretty sharply. As we go through the day, we're not going to see huge changes. The fog will take a while to clear, but much of the South Midlands, South Wales, southern England, dry, fine, sunny spells. Generally cloudier further north, a bit of drizzle here and there, and then we'll see some wetter weather coming into the far northwest later. Temperature-wise, double digits, a touch cooler than today in the south, but with more sunshine. Light winds. It should feel quite pleasant. We'll see a spell of wet and windy weather swing south then on Friday night, bringing some outbreaks of rain over northern England into Wales and the Midlands later on Saturday. To the north of that, turning blustery with some showers. Yes, that is a bit of snow on the hills there. Much of the south still largely dry and mild at this stage on Saturday. But notice further north temperatures struggling to get into double figures.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Problems in West Yorkshire on the M1. The inside lane remains closed southbound from junction 40 to 39, just to the south of Wakefield. Cars broken down, recovery work is underway. And in the West Midlands at Walsall, the Walsall Road blocked southbound by collision off Sandy Lane. Moving into Wiltshire, about a mile or so west of Salisbury, the A36 is closed through Wilton. That's southbound off the A30 following a spillage and accident. On the M27 in Hampshire, one lane's closed westbound junction 928 towards Hamble after a car broke down. On the M2 in Kent, a lane's closed on the eastbound Exeter. Lorries broken down at junction 3, the Chatham-Rochester turn-off. And there are delays and cancellations on trains out of London King's Cross up to Cambridge and Peterborough. That follows a points failure at Hitchin. And that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hello, everybody. I'm Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Kelvin Mackenzie, the former editor at The Sun, alongside me, as is Bill Rammell, the former Labour minister. Cool, blimey, we've had a lot to discuss, haven't we? Malcolm says, Michelle, he feels that people are leaving X because they want to attack Elon Musk and they want to hit the advertising. They think that they're trying to essentially get that platform closed down. The only people that leave Twitter are the far left ones, said Ben, who do not like the idea of hearing different opinions to them. I don't know. I'm not sure the Clifton Suspension Bridge is far left, is it? I don't know. You can tell me if you think otherwise. Anyway, look, the UK, let's talk about some immigration figures. 52.9% surge in migration in 2023. And I've got to say it's the highest, that level, among wealthy nations. Look at this, a total then of 746,900 migrants moving here last year. What do you think to these stats, Kelvin Mackenzie?
Well, they're massive, they're disturbing, and they came here because, let's just identify who got this wrong. They came here because of the Tory administration. They made a shocking decision which basically said if you're coming over here with to take some university degree course, you can bring all your family with you. And so everybody said, oh, good idea. And why did they come here? They came here because, with a bit of luck, they might be able to stay here, and it's a better country than the one that and better prospects than the one that they were leaving. The answer now is how on earth are we now going to deal with all this? We're watching both through the size of incredible numbers coming out of London, like 60% of all births now are to foreign mothers, right? We're beginning to see a really big change in our society. Now, it may be something that you can deal with, that we end up like Malaysia, you know, in terms of China, India, Malays, you know, a melting pot. I don't know that the voters of this country,
like Malaysia?
Well, because of the way that there's the division of the different groups politically in their parliament, and you know, the Muslims vote in one way, the Indians vote in another, and the Malays vote in another. So, are we heading towards that? The numbers will be less this year because the laws were changed about bringing your family in, but these numbers are off the scale, and they coincide with something that GBNews has been actually running uniquely, which is that the number of foreign-born workers signing on for universal credit has moved up in line with the 746,000. Universal credit foreign-born workers applying are now going up at the rate of 50,000 a month. 50,000 a month. All taxpayers' money. Where is this money coming from, right? And actually, Farage made a decent point. He was saying there is no correlation between the country getting richer by having these number of migrants. 6 out of the last 8 quarters, when there had been unique records in migrations coming in, what happened? Actually, our GDP went down. We are getting poorer as more people come in, not richer.
There's a lot I agree with what you've said, Kelvin. The bit I don't agree with is university students. And I declare an interest as a former university vice-chancellor. They bring a massive benefit to this country, about £12 billion a year. The public, if you look at the polling evidence, don't see overseas students as migrants, and 97% go back when they complete their courses.
Yeah, but he was talking about them bringing their family over.
Yeah, well, I think if people are making that commitment, they do need to bring family with them sometimes, but they go back after the 3 or 4 years. But these overall figures are the Tory record, and they let migration rip. In terms of why did it happen, it's really difficult not to conclude that despite their rhetoric, this was a deliberate choice by the Tories. Because, you know, the numbers they have let in, a very small proportion of that is illegal migration. This is the deliberate granting of visas for work that the Tories allowed. Now, we've got to tackle that. This Labour government will be destroyed if we don't bring down net migration. The figures in the budget demonstrate it's going to be down to about 300,000. That's over a 50% reduction. That's progress, but I think we need to get further. You can't completely obliterate net migration. You need some of it for the economy to function, but I think you need to get it much closer to 100,000.
And, I mean, we've just been talking about legal migration there, but on the other side, the illegal migration, of course, you've seen Starmer. He's been very proud of himself, talking about this new kind of arrest of that chap today when it comes to people smuggling.
And that's part, you know, he's not overselling it. He's saying that's part of the solution.
Well, he did. When you say he's not overselling it, the fact is he said anything about migration is absolutely incredible. I mean,
the government spent all last week talking about migration. Well, so I don't think that's fair.
No, they try and keep. All he keeps on saying is smash the gangs, and all that happens is the gangs keep coming here. Well, I will see there will be no change in the number of people coming to our country across the channel on the basis that a guy has been nicked in Turkey. And not only, and what we had to do with that, I'll be fascinated. After all, he was nicked at Schiphol Airport. He's going to be taken to Belgium to face charges. What role the UK police or anybody had in it?
It was
you know what they just added.
It was the Dutch, the Belgians, and it was the National Crime Agency.
Yeah, I know, that's what they claim.
And there are 70 other cases of high-profile criminal gang leaders that we're targeting. That is part of the way that you bring down illegal migration.
I'm in favour of it, but actually the idea of smashing the gangs is for the birds. If I can make you know, £150,000 per kayak coming over, I am going to carry on doing it regardless of how many National Crime Agency PRs
you
I have to
do
avoid.
a lot more than that, but it's part of the solution.
It is part of it, but I'd be rather more pleased if we did something a bit stronger.
Well, it's not just small boats, because anyone that was on or around the M20 this morning, there was a lorry and 11 people apparently jumped out of the back of this lorry just all over the place, which kind of raised a few eyebrows, because are we now going to see, it's all well and good people talking about clamping down on the small boats, but if what people are going to start to do is get themselves back into lorries, we used to have a lot of that, didn't we, then that's not really solving a problem, is it? Look, I'll speak of another problem after the break as well. When it comes to obesity, get this, everybody, it's costing taxpayers a massive £10 billion per year. What do you think to that? See you in 2.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The former royal correspondent for the Sun newspaper, Charles Ray. Good to see you this morning, Charles, and so good to see Catherine back to work with a hug.
It is. It's fantastic. I mean, there are a few royal jobs that you know, touch at the heartstrings, and this is certainly one of those. And I think it's the first time we've actually seen Catherine back in, you know, a royal duty since she herself confirmed that she'd finished chemotherapy.
Done so much, haven't they, the Princess of Wales and the King, to raise awareness for these cancers.
Here we have both the King and Catherine having, you know, explained to the nation and the rest of the world that they were battling, or are still battling, cancer, just like everyone else.
How sincere is all of this? I mean, it looks like she's a wonderful, kind, caring woman, but I don't know. I've never met her.
Well, she is a wonderful, kind, caring woman. That is without a shadow of a doubt. And they heard, or William heard, about this young lady on a visit to the air ambulance, and they invited her because she's a photographer, so she wanted to take. She has a bucket list and wanted to take pictures of an investiture. I mean, make no mistake, you know, people like Catherine are just absolutely wonderful in what they do and how they do it. I mean, and Catherine is the superstar of the royal family. Of that, there is no doubt.
It's the cockles of my heart, Charles. It really does. It's really good to see you. Thanks very much.
All the
Thanks,
best.
Charles. Thanks. And Liz, who is this 16-year-old amateur photographer who was hugged by Princess of Wales yesterday, has said it was a dream come true.
I bet it was.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock. Kelvin Mackenzie and Bill Rammell remain alongside me. Look, let's ask a question then, shall we? When it comes to obesity, we do talk about this issue quite a lot. But now, apparently, obesity-linked benefits are costing the average taxpayer £270 a year. That equates to a massive £10 billion annually. What do you think to this? There's a big conversation, isn't there, about some of these weight loss injections, a lot of conversations about prevention and things like that. Where are you on this topic?
Well, it costs you about a couple of £100 a month to have a Ozempic or the other one, I can't remember, Wegovy or something it was called. those people I know who've been on it, it has had dramatic effects. I'm not saying that there can't be side effects. There are, and I think they have a medical checkup once a month to make sure that you are suitable for the drug. It would be better if people gave up alcohol, stopped eating Krispy Kremes, and didn't live in Scotland if they want to.
Kelvin.
Lose weight. Well, actually, the Scottish Health Survey has just showed that 60% of Scotland, of Jokistan, is overweight. How incredible, right? It's no wonder that nobody comes. There's no mobility.
I know, but when you look at the measure, people will be shouting at the telly now, going, you know, Michelle, when you look at the measure in terms of what's classed as overweight, as you've just said, and what's classed as obese and whatever, people will push back and say that some of the metrics are things that people disagree with. But anyway, Bill?
I declare an interest as someone who struggled with his weight. Right. But, the reality is, and research backs this up, that for up to 80% of people it's genetic, as well as lifestyle and the kind of things that you eat. So people need support in losing weight. I'm not convinced by the figures in this research, because my brief calculation is it comes to a great deal more than £10 billion a year. But nevertheless, I think the broad case that they're making, that the National Institute for Clinical Excellence should take account of the long-term costs to the state in licensing weight-reducing drugs, I think is a powerful one. And I think the state has got a role to play in helping people.
Well, yeah, because this is the argument now, that when you look at the welfare cost, the benefits cost, this should now be a factor when clinicians are deciding whether or not to prescribe these drugs. What do you think?
Look, first of all, if you give up alcohol, right, that is, which is basically my position. That's the reason I'm the gorgeous shape I am. If you give up the alcohol, it's massively helpful. What I'm concerned about Ozempic,
I know, but people like those little. People will say, "Oh, give over my drink on a Wednesday or whatever." It's one of their perks of life.
Yeah, that's fine. If I thought I was dealing with somebody who was having a couple of glasses of Sauvignon on a Wednesday night, that's fine. We're talking about people getting stuck into pretty much every day and then going and moaning to the GP that they're not feeling very well. Whereas, in fact, look, I'm in favour of people losing weight. Why don't they just try a bit of exercise? Why don't they just try and reduce? Why don't they do a bill, cut back on the calories? But what I don't want to do, I do not want to see the whole nation then going on £200 a month Ozempic and me being sent the bill as a taxpayer.
I know, but the point of this thing is, when you are looking at what medication to prescribe someone or not, should the cost of benefits be a factor in the decision-making?
It always has been.
Yeah, but should it be?
Well, otherwise, and the pharmaceutical industry is developing new drugs every week of the year. The reality is we cannot afford all of those drugs, and therefore there has to be a mechanism to take that cost-benefit analysis. Now, the point this research is making is that if you do take into account the long-term costs of obesity to the state, then actually you raise the threshold of affordability.
Why can't... No, I don't know where you get that figure about 80% is due to your DNA.
Up to 80%.
Yeah, right. The people I know who are overweight for one simple reason: they are either eating or drinking too much and not taking enough exercise. And so I start from the position that the reason that people are large, there's going to be the odd exception. I totally agree. But by and large, the reason is it is self-induced, right? If it's self-induced, why can't people just have a bit of a go themselves? But the main point is, I don't want another bill coming back to the taxpayer, which is what I am fearful about.
It's not a bill. I mean, look, yes, it's about personal responsibility, but genetics is a big contributor, and people need help.
What's not a bill? What you just said to him? It's not a bill. What's not a bill?
Well, the thrust of this research is that actually the government, the state, would save money.
Do you know what
Bill,
I've been listening to people telling me that things will save money, and I've been watching my tax bill go through the roof. every decade since I started work. There's always an argument to spend more money through the NHS, which has to be met by somebody else. I do not want the huge cost of Ozempic coming to my account, honestly.
Well, it already partially is. If at the moment, if you're obese or you're type 2 diabetic, you can get it on the NHS.
Well, I can tell you now, there's massive reaction coming in for this. Ray, you're not having any of it, to be honest, Ray. He says he doesn't buy the notion that weight is genetic. He says if you don't eat rubbish, you won't get fat. Many people saying if you eat less and move more, that will fix the issue. David's asking, what about everyone working from home, hardly moving around and transporting themselves anymore? Isn't that about to make things absolutely worse? A lot of people do agree with you. They do think, actually, that weight is a genetic thing. We used to call it big boned. Is that still a thing or not?
I'll tell you what...
Anyway, no, you can't tell me what. You'll have to hold that exciting thought, because it's all I've got time for, everyone. Thanks, gents. Thanks to you at home. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow night.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News, where we keep clear skies tonight. Expected to turn a little frosty with some fog patches. There will be some rain arriving tomorrow across the northwest, but a fine day across much of the south thanks to this area of high pressure. Changes are on the way as we go into the weekend. But for Friday, that high pressure keeping things largely dry. As I said, through the night where we've got some clear skies across the south, and we could see a touch of frost in rural spots, and we could also see some fog patches forming parts of northeast Scotland, also turning a little chilly. Elsewhere, generally a bit too much cloud, providing some drizzle in parts of western Scotland and the odd spot